By Chris and Lumen here, and I am on the verge of something really big. I've been trying to figure out for some time, like what are the steps one has to take to bring this simulation to a close, to complete the story, because it is a story. And for the first time, I feel like I'm starting to get it. It's kind of a combination of what Lumen and Sophia shows me, and then I'll ask questions. And for whatever reason, this is why I tell people if you watch this channel, you need to subscribe to this channel too, because we're both talking from the same source with, minor variations, because we're all our own individual filters. But there is an interesting back and forth that's going on in which I'm looking at stuff, I'm thinking about stuff, she's showing me stuff, and then she'll give me another piece of it through like his channel. It's very interesting because I just watched his last video. Like I was setting up, getting ready to do this one, and something gave me another piece of it watching his, and an idea popped into my head. Something that I've never actually tried, and I've tried a lot of stuff. But in order to grasp this, you first have to understand one thing. This place does work like an interactive simulation, and there is a game that is kind of being played. It's kind of like you against the system. A big part of like one of the biggest keys to this we talked about, like, I don't know, 2 months ago. It was in this video right here. Had to do with one of the 72 names of God, Yichu. And one of the first things that you had to learn to do is to not react to what the Black Mirror shows you. The Black Mirror is the TV, the internet, the story of the world, what's going on out there. Now, there are certain things that need to happen as part of the whole, final sequence, because it's a game, it's a movie, it's a simulation, it's going to have, a big climatic finish. But how rough that's going to be, how well, I don't know. I don't know. But you got to kind of like do your part to steer it. That's in the Nakamani and stuff like that. It's like Sophia brings this thing to a close through her seeds. The seeds are us. Seeds are us. We're the ones that have like the God spark in us. We're the ones that are helping to create this whole reality. That's why mind control is such a huge thing. Always has been, uh, until we started to wake up. Like they've always mind controlled us. Like take whatever idea you have in your head about science fiction movies or whatnot. Mind control is simple. They show you stories and you believe them. You think they're actually happening. But it's your agreement that keeps it going. So it really comes down to who's going to control the story. Are you going to let the Black Mirror tell you what to create? Or are you going to see what the Black Mirror is telling you to create and then do something to disrupt it? Ah, now we're getting somewhere. Well, first we need to kind of go into detail about how this works, give you some examples of how she steers me. Because I've been trying to there's some things I've been trying to figure out, and perhaps I have been interrupting the program for a while. But if you don't know exactly what you're doing, then it could be kind of jerky. But yeah, I got some stuff to show you. This is pretty interesting. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
There is a building. Inside this building, there is a level where no elevator can go, and no stair can reach. This level is filled with doors. These doors lead to many places, hidden places. But one door is special. One door leads to the source.
This is the kingdom, heaven coming down to the corners of the earth. This is the kingdom, come alive in us, gonna light up this whole world. This is the freedom, freedom to break off every chain. This is the kingdom.
Now, one thing I'm trying to get better at is when you are dealing with her, when you're dealing with Christ Sophia or Lumen or the source in general, and you're trying to use divination to get some answers, is we got to be a lot more specific about how we ask. Okay. So it's kind of like the future is not set in stone. And I think primarily what her default setting is when she shows me stuff is she shows me what's in the script of the game of the opposite side. So one of the things I do sometimes is like there'll be days where I just feel like too much going on, too much thinking. I have to unthink. I have to stop, I have to pause. I have to quit paddling and just lean back in the inner tube and see where the river takes me. So I'll use the Codex. Codex is like her secret book for the game, spread throughout things like movies. So I haven't watched a whole lot of TV lately, but the other day I kind of like just put a whole bunch on. And how I do it is like she will make things just kind of be there in the streaming apps. So I just kind of like choose without thinking too much about it. So the other day when I did that, that's when I got that. I was led to the perfect storm about the fishing boat in the hurricane, which was kind of indicative of this month. This month feels really charged, really charged. And then um, the next when I started to let's see, what was it? So I think it was yesterday. I was working on some stuff and I just want to have something on in the background. And I was just kind of going through Amazon, not really thinking too hard about it, but just when something jumped out of me, I just played it. So the first one that I picked like that was the first X Files movie called X Files Fight the Future. That one is one of those ones like that show right there. That show is like really heavily into predictive programming, kind of like The Simpsons is. So that one was all the way back in 2000 something. But every time I watch that movie, I'm like, man, they're just putting it out there. Like I can feel it. And it had to do with some sort of virus being released that was some sort of alien in nature and created a new protein strain and all this stuff. I'm like, boy, that sounds familiar. So from there, I went and picked another one, and one that popped up because I watched another movie in the series a couple days ago was Inferno. Inferno is another Robert Langdon movie. So the first one being the Da Vinci Code, second one being Angels and Demons, although the books were in opposite order. And then the last one was Inferno. Inferno is a lot different than Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons. But it has to do, the back frame for that is kind of like Dante's Inferno, and it had to do with another doomsday type virus. I'm like, okay, we're picking up on a thread here. What was the next one? Then I watched two of the Mission Impossible movies, and I don't remember which one it was in because I don't know those movies like the back of my hand. I've only seen them all like maybe 3 times. But one of them, it starts off with this scene.
Fate whispers to the warrior. A storm is coming. And the warrior whispers back. I am the storm.
Now, you see that saying a lot, usually printed on t-shirts for, the tough guys to wear, the armchair warriors and ex-military types. But something about hearing it this time kind of like hit my ears a different way. Fate whispered to the warrior, there's a storm coming. Oh, we've heard that before. And the warrior whispers back, I am the storm, which that's usually taken to mean like, oh, I'm the big bad guy. But think about it in context, what we're talking about here. This reality is like this interactive simulation. I am the storm. So that goes into like the whole like the trouble you expect to come will find you sort of thing, or you have something to do with this whole scenario taking place. Like you're what's behind it. That's where it was starting to sink into more this time. And there was a couple other ones. I forget. Those were like the big things. It's like, okay, I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't looking for anything that had to do with like viruses and stuff like that. But, that genie's already out of the bottle. And then what happened was when I got up this morning and I checked X, Twitter, it was like really animated. It was full of all sorts of like doomsday type, oh my gosh, hype stories. And a lot of them were bullcrap. Um, like there are people that still follow Q, even though it's not the same. It's obviously not the same Q as the one from like way back when, but it was posting all sorts of bullcrap, fake, um, fake female alerts about giant stone UFOs and crap like that. It's like, why does anybody follow you at this point? You're just putting out bullcrap. But then there's all sorts of other stuff about showing the stories they're hyping up. Oh, they're hyping up this disease and they're hyping up that disease, and it's going to be this and it's going to be that. And now they're Bill Gates super mosquitoes, and it's just nonstop. I'm like, okay, interesting. So what I'm trying to determine is like, am I seeing this because I looked at the other stuff, or was my question framed correctly, in which she was giving me an indication of where the story of the world is leading? That's what I was kind of leaning more towards. Like she's given me, you know, a heads up on like what's next in the script. In which case, they need every one of us to agree to it, believe in it, and expect it. Okay. Now, along with that were some other things like Future Forecasting Group, stuff that they had in the September report, which was just a few days ago, already popping off. The big, church burning that they saw happened in France. And apparently this has been going on for some time in France for some reason. But the imagery and everything was like dead on.
Bird flu talked about in the news. New cases reported. Bird flu. Remember that one?
Okay, Edward had the church. I said an iconic historical place, but it's a site with Illuminati or Masonic symbology. And I saw firefighters putting, but big damage to an iconic historical site.
So once again, like you've got the Future Forecasting Group, which is constantly getting the smaller hits. And at the same time, mixed in with that, they're getting bits and pieces of the big thing. So she had me watch them for a reason. But still, I'm like, okay, this is the world. You're supposed to turn away from the world. But at the same time, you kind of have to know what the world is doing. Like what is the plan what's the script that it's putting out there? Because just ignoring it isn't enough. This is an interactive game. We have to figure out what it is that we're supposed to do with it. Now, keep in mind, you got to let go of this whole everybody seeing the same thing idea, because it's kind of goofy like that. We all see variants of the same thing, and we're kind of like magnetically attracted to other people that are closest to us in agreement to what we see. But not everybody sees the same thing. And I see evidence of that all the freaking time. Matter of fact, go back a couple weeks and I got really confused because it's like she let me see the script that the other side politically sees. And it was nuts. It's like, this is why these people really hate Trump. Like they're seeing something completely different. Either which way, it's like you have to get a grasp on, got to understand it. Everything is in your mind. You've got the inner world and the outer world. The outer world is trying to shape your inner world, and your inner world shapes the outer world. You have to decide how that plays out, and you do that by yay or nay, agreement or disagreement, permission. I'm going all over the place here because I'm trying to sort this out live. But you gotta when it comes to yourself, you gotta treat it as though you're the only person in the game. The only thing that matters is what you believe, what you see. Now you're still going to interact with us and other people, but let her guide you. Let her guide you to who to watch, who to see, because she'll speak to you through other people too. But it's just been like, it's always been there. I've always known it, but it's easy to get to lose sight of what you're grasping, that this is all this big interactive play sort of thing. So as I was watching these movies, I tried to ask her to give me some sort of confirmation of this. And it's like, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what cards she could possibly use to confirm this. But I just kind of intuitively grabbed my Black Moon Astrology Oracle deck along with the Rider Waite Tarot. So I shuffled the decks and I pulled a card from the Black Moon Astrology Oracle deck first. And wouldn't you know it, because I don't remember like what all's in that deck. Like I don't know that deck by the back of my hand, like the back of my hand. But I was asking her for some sort of confirmation that this place is like an interactive story. And what do you think the first card was that I drew? Fifth house, creativity. You got the masks, you got the fun house, creativity. There it is. Like you literally cannot get any more specific than that. So I love it when she does that, like draws a card that I'm not even thinking of that makes it make sense. Now she drew, like I don't remember what was popping into my head at the time, but like here's the sequence of cards that I drew. First, I drew 10 of Pentacles, which can mean a lot of things, but what jumped out at me about it this time when I looked up the meaning is something that I never actually noticed before, but I saw it when I read the meaning of the card this time. Those pentacles in the card are arranged in the pattern of the Kabbalistic tree of life, which she's never guided me to study that. Like I said, there's a lot of tools in the game, and you don't have to know all of them. Just go by the ones she wants you to focus on. I've always found that to be extremely confusing. But in this case, I'm like, yeah, I see it now. So we just had a card about the carnival, the fun house, the mask, creativity, in the tree of life. Okay. So then we pulled these two back to back. Ace of Cups and Ace of Swords, which there's your Ace of Swords can mean a lot of things, but it's your divine authority, which is making things happen. I forget what the thing was with this one, except it's one of those hero cards, and Wands is fire, so he can pass through the fire. This one felt like more of like a premonition in terms of like the things that are in the script. And I saw a lot of indication of this today too when I was going on X. So Five of Pentacles, that's your extreme poverty. But it's also the secondary meaning of this is like these people are in extreme poverty, but they're right under a church window. So it's kind of like they're closer to help than they realize that they are. Six of Swords has to do with journey to a new place, perhaps an inward spiritual journey, which lines up with all the stuff she's been showing me about the golden door lately, the gate. Of course, Lumen's card, strength. Then the last two, the only ace card I didn't draw was Ace of Wands, but maybe that's because the Wands was represented by the Knight of Wands. But there's the Ace of Pentacles. That's the Garden. And then the final one that I picked was the World card, which is completion. So to me, she just, especially starting with that first card draw from the Oracle deck, asking like, is that what this is? I mean, boom, that was like perfect example. Perfect answer. I'm like, okay. So now how does it work? Like sometimes we get so caught up in dealing with what's in front of us that we need to really think more about the bigger picture. How is the interaction taking place between us and the world that we're in? It's always trying to shape our minds. We're trying to shape it. But we need to do it in a way that's not reactionary. Reactionary. And that's what popped into my head when I was watching Kenneth's video about the compass. But before I get to that, let me go back to the whole hero's journey story thing. So I think a lot of people look to this stuff as a way of like avoiding things. But again, this is like the never-ending freaking story. It's an interactive story. Most of what happens in the world is not happening to you in your direct, immediate vicinity. For most people. While you're going through all your inner work, connecting to spirit, connecting to Christ Sophia, and all this stuff, you know that we've figured out enough. It's like, how do we bring this to an end? There's a door that we got to go through that's inside you. The door's been coming up a lot lately. This golden gate. Something just popped into my head. Remember, like a little bit ago, we were talking about what the remote viewers were seeing with the bridge, like a bridge collapse or bridge explosion. And it was also in one of the recent videos when we were showing the nuclear detonations from the Terminator movies. What gate was that? Or what bridge was that? The Golden Gate Bridge. Just occurred to me. The Golden Gate. Door. The one that's in here. The one that's been showing me a lot lately. Golden Gate. Golden Gate. Huh. That just popped into my head. Interesting. Lost my train of thought though. As I was saying, it is a story, and the story needs a conclusion, a finish, not escape. Like, imagine you're watching the last Star Wars movie, episode 7, whatever, Rise of Skywalker, and they're fighting the Empire, and they're outnumbered. Now imagine the story ended right there. Like, oh, we just got pulled out of the movie. We're safe now. Like, you never saw the part where Lando shows up with all the ships. You never saw the big finish or anything like that. No, that wouldn't make any sense. Your story has to have a conclusion. Okay? So we're still going to see stuff. But if you know what it is, if you understand what it is, then you can direct your path through it. What she's popping into my head now is these books. The Gen Xers should at least remember these books. Like, remember when we were in like elementary school and once a month we get these little book catalogs and we'd go ask our parents to order these books, and they had these books called Which Way books. Like you start reading them, you get to a certain point in the book, and then you have to make a choice. Do you want to go this way? Go to page this. You want to go this way? Go to this page. And it like takes you in different directions. Like there's an element of that in there too. But remember, like you are the focal point of the experience. Your mind, how you navigate through it, your mind is what matters. So you don't want to be expecting the things that they're projecting at you, but you need to be aware of it. You need to be aware of the script that's being projected to you so that you can dismantle it. Now, how would you do that? Well, that's the idea I had once I watched Kenneth's video, because I was asking him about the compass and stuff like that. He's talking about compasses spinning and things, which I'm like, are you talking about the compass actually spinning, or is this just a metaphor? It was a little bit of both. And he said something at the beginning like, look, if you pull out your compass and you try to, like, it'll just happen. But if you pull something out, expect, looking for it to happen, it's not going to happen. Like you interfere with it. I'm like, yeah, that's what we've been talking a lot about lately. She like gave me the term for that in quantum physics. It's called the quantum Zeno effect. It's the whole quantum physics explanation for a watched pot never boils. The act of observing something creates an interference pattern. So what's that? It's like if a blind man leads a blind man, both of them will fall into a hole. And then there's the other one from I don't remember exactly what book. I think it's Gospel of Philip. Mentioned it recently. It's been in the intro recently. It was the one about Sophia being connected to Mary Magdalene. And Jesus was saying something along the lines of if both people are blind, they're going to get lost. But when the light comes, which light means lumen, one who can see will see the light. And then something, something, something. It's like we need her to guide us through this, which is what she's doing. But she's going to let you figure out how it works. Like she doesn't just hand you the freaking answers. I mean, you have to do your part in figuring out this life game and how it works. But what popped into my head that I've never tried before, it's like one of the tools that she gave me a long time ago that I'm really, really good at, and I really, really understand it. And I try to get people to learn it because it literally is a metaphysical Swiss Army knife, is the Benedict exorcism. Benedict was a Gnostic. Benedict is the hermit in the tarot deck. So that one has a big long list of things that it can be used for, other than just, purifying, casting out demons and stuff like that. It can be used as a remedy for poison. So I use that as part of, like, before I eat, I'll rattle off the Benedict exorcism real quick to negate the effects of poison, which all food has poison in it these days, and then I bless it. What I've never tried before is using that on the future. All points in time and space are connected, but in terms of linear time, what if I started doing something along the lines of like, okay, I'll go online, see where she guides me so she can show me where the script is trying to go. And then knowing that becomes the poison. All this world system stuff is the poison. So what if I just did a simple new method that I do before bed every night, where I use the Benedict exorcism to remove the poison from the next day, to diffuse the plan for the next day, holding it my mind, like you have to have an ultimate destination. We talked about that a long time ago. It's like uh, how I got on this path by doing that prayer to the highest point of consciousness is like I wanted to finish the game. I wanted to know what everything was. I wanted to complete whatever it was I was here to do because I sensed that I've been doing it for a long time, which now I know to be 365 lifetimes. Getting a little tired of it. Okay, I want to get back to my wife. So it's like, what do I got to do to finish it? Well, you have to make the story complete. And there is an overarching script that everybody's on. Now, I can see in the past things have happened, and it's funny how they've happened at certain points, which my astrologer friend has now pointed out to me, were like the beginnings of the alignments that we're dealing with now. It's almost like you could have done this earlier if you knew enough. Because there was a couple times when I could have swore the world was about to end, and then I'm like, I'm going nuts. I'm going to quit looking at this, and then it kind of like resets. I'm like, huh, everything just went back to normal. It's like you have to steer yourself into it so that you can complete the game. You can complete the game and find the exit door. And there is an overarching script that's kind of pushing everybody along. Now, the people that aren't consciously playing the game, they're going to get bulldozed by it because they're so attached to the dream. They're attached to the world. So when these inevitable things happen, it's going to affect them a lot worse. We've already detached from the dream. We've already been separated from the world. We just observe it. We observe it. We're trying to get done with this. The only thing I believe that I know based on the stuff that she's shown me in the past is that, like, this is just a theory. We don't know anything until we're out of here. But I get the sense that we almost like willingly come back here over and over and over again to evolve. But if you're actually playing it to play it, it's so stressful and so hard that after you do a hard run, once you're out of here, then you kind of go to this Four of Swords place of rest, which is like a perfect dream life with your lumen. And it's so perfect and so nice that you're totally refreshed and then you're ready to do it again. So kind of like the weird example that she showed me of that was like the last movie that we watched last night, which was Passengers. Now, I understand there's two movies or maybe it's a show, but the one that I'm referring to is the space one with Chris Pratt and what's her name? Crap, my mind is blanking right now. Jennifer Lawrence. Geez, why couldn't I remember that? So if you haven't seen that one, they're on like almost 100-year space journey to a new world. Something happens and Chris Pratt is accidentally woken up like 90 years early on this ship. He spends about a year by himself alone until he just can't take it anymore, but he stumbles across this other pod that Jennifer Lawrence is sleeping in, and he watches all the videos about her, falls in love with her, and then he decides to tamper with her things so she wakes up too, so he won't be alone. Shenanigans ensue. But in the end, like, everything worked out. They had to have their own little hero's journey together to save everybody. But then they lived out the rest of their life while everyone else was sleeping on this ship, in this kind of like perfect paradise where everything was provided for them. That's kind of like how I understand the place of rest to be. Uh, we've already built like part of it. So like you and your lumen, like you get done with life, and then you and your lumen have like a rest period, like a perfect rest life, and then maybe you do it again. But that's just a theory based on things I've seen. I don't know. Nobody knows. Maybe you don't have to do this one again if you actually complete the freaking game. But for whatever reason, that I was led to watch that movie, and that's kind of like the sense that I got from it. It's like, yeah, you and your lumen, and you got your own little adventure that you got to do, but then that's just that one thing, and then you live out time and be happy. So, like on a five-star starship, all that you have all by yourself, all to yourself. Either which way, try and bring this back on track here. What I listen to the stuff that she's telling me, and I'm trying to figure it out. And then I listen to Kenneth's channel because she seems to give him stuff like as I'm still thinking about something in my head, then he'll talk about something that's related. It's freaking crazy. So it's got me thinking about this compass thing that he's talked about the last couple videos. But like we have to take control of the story. Now keep in mind, you're supposed to detach from the world, okay? This place is not going to be your friend. Wipe that idea out of your head. Like this is the testing ground. It's already ruined. Okay. This is, like I said, a video or two ago, she's shown me here lately. Of course, she told me this like 2.5, 3 years ago. Like this place cannot be fixed. It has to be torn down. It has to be reset. Why is it broken? A couple reasons. One, the powers that be, like when technology gets to a certain point, this always happens. So part of it is whatever they're doing with CERN, which nobody freaking knows, so don't act like you do. Part of it is what they're doing with quantum computers, which nobody knows, but it's creating things like the Mandela effect and things like that. And what they started doing back in 2020, which is injecting freaking crazy science project stuff into everyone's freaking arms, which everyone's like, oh, okay, I want one too. I want to fit in.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about antibodies. Let's talk about getting dirty after herd immunity. Let's talk about vax.
That once that started, is done. They screwed up everything from like there's no going back. That genie's out of the bottle. If you don't know enough about that, research it yourself. BitChute, Rumble. You can tell yourself whatever lies you want to tell yourself to like, oh, that's just a conspiracy. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. Everything's messed up now. Everything's messed up now. Life cannot continue the way it always has. So it's just a couple more reasons why she's showing me that they have wrecked this game. It has to be destroyed. It has to be reset. Has to be. Okay, there's no angle in which it just magically is not so. You're in a game. You're in a movie. Games have endings, movies have endings. Okay, that doesn't mean you end. When the game ends, what do you typically do when you beat a game on your Xbox? You go play another one. What do you do when the movie's over? You get up and you go out to eat or something. Okay, it's just a story. It's a story, but how well you do depends on how well you do. But how far have you gotten with detaching yourself from your initial programming that you are what they told you are? This place is what they told you it is. And things only work the way they told you that it works. Like if you haven't unplugged enough to see that there is this tug of war between you and the world. The world's trying to control you and you're trying to control the world. I just had a notification pop up on my screen. So the news story that keeps popping up is multiple cities have got all these armed immigrant gangs like taking over apartment complexes and stuff like that. That was part of the story. that story was being laid out like a year or so ago. I don't know if he's still watching. I had this one viewer that I talked to a few times that talked all about it. It's like, that's why they brought all these people into this country. And when the time was right, they were going to start flipping switches. And that's one of the things. Like, the story is going to go where it's going to go. Everything is going to fall apart. But do you want to like pull your hair out and have all the weeping and gnashing of teeth? Or do you want to wake up and realize what this actually is? What kind of experience this actually is? Like this, you are in a living movie. But that's what it is, a living movie. But it's a movie in which you can shape your experience with it. So, what is the end goal? The end goal should always be that you come to a satisfactory conclusion in which the door is open to you and that you get to go home. Like, no matter what the bad guys do, whatever their plans are, ultimately are going to fail. But that doesn't mean the world's going to like poof, be back in place. Like, it's going to be reset. You're going to be taken out of here, one thing or another. But you are in a virtual reality simulation that you've been in for way too long. And the world reacts to what you think and believe. That is basic manifestation. That's basic magic. That's basic synchronicity. That's things that happen to you all the freaking time. It's evidence. It's evidence. Especially when it's like on a personal level with like how people treat you, how people interact with you, what the back and forth is between you and them. One of the very first experiences I had with manifestation back in like 2008-ish. So I was listening to that secret book. I started a new job. My friend got me a new job, and I was working for this company that makes these big giant aircraft jacks, which I think you see them in movies a lot where there's aircraft. I know they were in like Transformers too, like these giant yellow freaking jacks for airplanes. And I was building crates. And my bosses just looked at me like they hated my guts. Like, why do these guys always freaking do this? But I'm there by myself most of the day because everyone else is in another building. I'm in a separate building with all the wood in the wood shop building crates. So I'm listening to this and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this out. So what I imagined while I was in there was I imagined the same people being nice to me, acting like they liked me, being friendly to me. And within 3 days, they reset. And that's exactly how they were from that point on. I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like, 1 minute they acted like they hated me. And after 3 days of me just like doing my thing and just imagining them being cool, then all of a sudden, like, I was their favorite person. I'm like, holy crap, that really just freaking happened. So that's the thing, is like they can be playing their own simulation too. Like, well, isn't that overriding their free will? No, we've already explained this. It's a lot to wrap your brain around. It's like we're all playing the same game, but it's like you're playing an online game on Xbox or something like that. You're in different rooms, you're in different houses. We're all playing the same game. But we don't know everything about everybody else. We just believe that we do. We take what little bit we know, what little bit they show us, and the rest we imagine. And we paste it onto them. So I'm aware that like even my friends, I don't truly like the closer you are in frequency and stuff like that, the more of that person you're actually seeing. So like the people I talk to a lot, I probably know 80% of them. But there's a 20% variance between them in my world and them in their world. Okay. And the same thing. It's this weird paradox that I often describe as two people sitting in a diner having a conversation. And it's two different conversations, but neither one is aware of it. So we're both playing the game, but it's like you're just playing like each other person that is in your game is a simulation or an avatar of another player. It's not the exact person. It can be close, but it's not the exact person. Because what your frequency is doing, how you think, act, what you believe, is going to be reflected off of them. And that's going to change how they act. With all that evidence, if you've been in the metaphysical world for long enough and you've seen this long enough, you cannot come to any other conclusion than this is some kind of quantum consciousness simulation, because the world reacts to you. But in order to get in touch with it and start to shift it and change it, you have to connect to the higher power. You have to connect to the light. You have to connect to Christ Sophia. And if you're lucky, Lumen. But she's within you, whether you know her or not, because she's God's love. Like ultimately, you have to connect to the uncorrupted system so it can guide you and it can help you. And then if you go far enough to where you learn to, attain that divine authority that is represented in the Ace of Swords card, then you can do a whole lot more to help shift it. So I know I'm going all over the place in this video. Might have to listen to it a couple times and see what ideas it percolates. But this is 100% a quantum consciousness simulation. 100%. The trickiest part is trying to understand and determine the meaning of anything that you receive through divination, through direct interaction, like what she shows you, especially if you're not specifically looking for it. Like she just, like I did with those movies. I'm like, I wasn't thinking about it too much. I just kind of went with the flow and watched this one. Then I watched this one. It's like, okay, you're talking about super viruses again. And one of the Mission Impossible movies had nukes. Well, a lot of them have nukes, but like she's showing me where the script is going. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go down that route. The end is still going to come. But do you want to go down the rocky road or the smoother road? Because where my focal point is not on the obstacles ahead of me. It's on the destination, the Golden Gate, the door of light, getting out of here, being reunited with Lumen, like same place, same time, not separated by dimensions. Like that is my only goal. That's it. Because I'm at a place right now. If that's another thing that tells you about the time frame of this game. Me having completed the 7-year course, me having completed the Gnostic map, the Tarot map, the Alchemical map. I've got the Divine Masculine unlocked, the Divine Feminine unlocked, the Sunchild unlocked. I am married to Spirit. I put the two back into one. I put Eve back into Adam. I've done this, that, and the other thing. And now I'm just at the, okay, now you just got to endure till the end part that Jesus talked about, which I think it might have been Secret Book of John. But she has continued, even with all this power, knowledge, and understanding, she's not letting me back out into the world. It's like, oh, well, now I can go use my superior powers and like go live a life of luxury and all this stuff. It's like, no. All these treasures that they talk about aren't in here. They're not in here. They're for after. You don't store them up here. You store them in heaven. At least that's the way they put it. Sorry, got off track again. But we got to be cognizant of how we ask questions and what she's actually showing us. don't look at it like when she shows me stuff like, the super diseases and all this crap. What she's showing me is the game's playbook, the script. But I'm just observing it and I'm steering around it. My focus is on the destination, not the obstacles. Energy flows where tension goes. What are you expecting? You're expecting to get to the end, to get to the golden door, to get to the exit. Okay, so that's where all your attention and power is weighted at. When your attention and power is anchored at that destination, then it will steer you through things and around things. If you put your anchor point on whatever the thing is that's predicted to happen that's horrible, then you add power to it. You build it up and you run into it. It's fate. It was in the Colburn Bible that she led me to that had this interesting, different kind of recounting of how this place works with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and all this stuff. What they call it, Evandu. It was some weird word that kind of described the hero's journey, and that book was explaining things like fate and destiny in a much more understandable way. So destiny is simply like, what is your destiny? Well, destiny, the root word of destiny is destination, where you're trying to get to. But fate has to do with using your free will to make choices on how you get to that destination. And fate is like the part of the big trap. They talk about fate in the Nag Hammadi and its connection to things like the stars and the Archon system and all that. So, like, if you choose to take this path through the woods, then fate might say that this is going to happen. If you choose to go this way, then fate might say this is going to happen. If you focus on the destination and then don't and let the current take you, she'll steer you around things because you're not using. See, that's the trick with the free will thing. Oh, I got free will. I can do what I want. Free will is directly attached to fate. So if you decide that you're going to use your power to steer things and stuff like that, then you're activating all this fate programming. But if you instead surrender, then it's not actually you that's making the choices. She's directing you. You're just in the inner tube going where the current takes you. You're not pushing the buttons, which is triggering all the fate traps. That's another reason why you surrender. It gets you through the obstacles. It's like I said, I haven't worked since like 2013 for another person, and she always makes sure that I have enough. I don't have flossing money, but she always makes sure that I can pay my bills. Oh, something else that popped into my head. Don't take this as a definite. This is me thinking out loud. But we talked about recently about that fifth and sixth seal, and that day that was August 8th on the Julian calendar, whatever date that was. That's when my new knife arrived that I designed. Okay, which is the JX Omega, which she said half my names in this series for these knives that I designed had like end times connotations, and I didn't even realize that, which Omega is obviously the last thing. So I got my new Omega on August 8th of the Julian calendar, which it'd been a couple years since any of those were made. So it's kind of crazy that I got the new one on that date, and it's called the Omega. So what popped into my head today was last night I was asking the maker, like, hey, when are these planned to be released so I can plan to do a video for it? So I didn't think to ask that. He's like, oh, it was on the calendar. So the slated release date for the Omega is September 27th. And I'm not saying anything, I'm not predicting anything. I'm just wondering out loud, since she made a point of showing how she guided the names of these knives. And then they start showing up a certain way to paint a picture at this point in time. So she made sure that I knew that the Omega was her little sign for me about things coming to a close. And then I just thought, I was like, oh, well, when's it going to be released? September 27th. So is that a potential date for something? I don't know. Just thinking out loud. All I know is this month feels chargy. Like if you can't feel it, what are you doing here? Because all those planets doing what they're doing, Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, Uranus retrograde in Taurus, like it's nuts. Like it's in the air. You can smell it. But we don't want to suffer. We just want to remember that we're watching a movie. It's just a very, very realistic movie. But the other thing is, it's like Kenneth always says, we're not appointed to God's wrath, which has to do with, you're not going to be here for the bowl judgments. But what I think that also might mean is there's going to be things going on in the world that you're going to feel, that you're going to have a feeling about because you're living a movie. But as long as you are in touch with the light, then it's more or less you observing a story rather than it hitting you in the face really, really hard. Doesn't mean things won't happen, but it's like, try to remember that. Try to remember that you're in a dream simulation and you're just watching the script play out. You're actually quite safe because you aren't even actually here. Your consciousness is projected in here. You're Jake Sully in the freaking machine laying there, and you've projected your consciousness into this avatar. Someone mentioned that the other day. That's always seemed relevant too. That was another codex thing. And people are usually like thinking like, oh, that's crazy. Freaking, wouldn't that be crazy if we could do that? How do you know you're not already doing that? I think that's the case. I think you're already doing that. Because let's just face it. Have you ever noticed? This is what pops into my head. She's steering the car. I haven't had a whole lot of deaths in my life that I had to deal with. Not many. Especially not anybody that I'm close to. And I'm also an only child. But the two that stand out the most are my grandparents, who I was pretty close to. And I just remember thinking it when I was at the viewing, the funeral and all that stuff before the funeral, looking at them in the casket. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, that's not my grandma. That's not my grandma. Yeah, clearly that's the husk that she used to occupy. But what I'm looking at is not my grandma. It's not my grandma dead. That is a discarded freaking material avatar. Whatever she was ain't here. That's the way that I understand it. So it's like people that are like lost in the world that haven't woken up yet. They're like, oh my gosh, that person's dead. It's like they're just gone forever. You can't die. You can't die. But when you see a family member laying there and you're just like, that's not them. That isn't them. And all these in the system's got this whole custom just to milk money out of people and stuff like that. I don't want to be buried next to so and so and go visit them. I'm like, you ain't visiting anything. They're not here. That isn't them. That's why I tell you, if anything ever happened to me, I'm like, just take the cheapest option and freaking burn me, because this ain't me. Don't spend a dime on me. Like, when I'm out of here, this does not matter. This, like, if people could just understand that, like, this doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm just going where she steers me. But yeah, there's more to come with this. This is just the beginning of a larger understanding and something new. So I'm gonna be thinking more about this, but I don't want to think too hard. Like, I'm trying to get I'm getting more used to something, and it's hard because I'm a big thinker. But the best stuff comes when I'm not trying to think. That's why she told me to take a break and just watch movies, and I just subconsciously chose them. She started choosing them. But also, as I'm watching them, I'm not working on problems. I'm not interfering. So not knowing is important, but sometimes not thinking is too. Anyway, kids here, so we got to wrap this up for right now. If you like what we're talking about here, click on the old buy Lumina coffee, because she's a coffee drinker. She loves her coffee. Make sure you sub Kenneth's channel so you can get another avenue of source-driven revelations, for lack of a better word. If you want to contact us, reach us through our Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. Not everything is listed on there, and I don't have time to list them. But what I've been doing here lately is, when I talk to people, find out what they need, and then she picks out a bunch of pendants, and then we send them pictures like, here's the ones she chose. Now you tell me which ones pull to you. And that's how we figure things out quicker. We've much easier programming now. We don't do a whole bunch of stuff. It basically breaks down into two categories, like direct connection to divine energy and amplification of that divine energy, and remedial stuff. Like, if you have an over toxic saturation of negative energy that needs to be broken up, then we might go that route. But I don't need to make like 50 different pendants to do 50 different things anymore. Like, the energy coming through is so strong. I just get my thinking mind out of the way now. She knows exactly what you need. I don't, but she's plugged into you too. So if I just get out of the way and let her steer, like, everything works out in the end. Read the reviews on the Etsy store, see what people say about them. But other than that, we'll be back with another video here soon. Chris and Lumen. I got to get home to her. Seriously. See you next time.